A terrible epidemic has begun in the city, turning the infected into aggressive, bloodthirsty creatures stripped of humanity. A family tries to escape the zombie apocalypse by returning to the father's farmhouse, where he spent his childhood, and they fortify to keep the undead out. The film begins with the wedding video of Francis and Iris, who look madly in love with each other. Among the guests, we see Francis's brother, who doesn't look happy. The scene then shifts to the present day. Francis drives his van through deserted roads, heading into the countryside with his wife, Iris, and their 2 sons. Judging by the many bloody handprints on the van, their journey has been difficult, and they barely fought off attackers. Within a short time, the megacities have become empty and destroyed. When they arrive at Francis's father's old farm, he asks his family to stay inside the van while he goes into the house. Carefully opening the door, he immediately senses a heavy stench of decay. His father lies on the bed, long deceased. A gun in his hand and bite marks on his body suggest he fell victim to the virus and chose to end it himself. Without grief, Francis simply takes the weapon and even removes his father's watch, feeling no emotion. Before leaving, however, Francis hears strange sounds and sees his mother, now turned. She utters words of apology, likely spoken before her death. As she approaches Francis, he shoots her, then buries his parents and brings his family into the house. The next day, after ensuring the farm's water is safe, Francis decides to stay here with his family. However, Iris resists this decision, as she had hoped they would continue north, where there is rumored to be a safe camp for survivors. Despite her protests, Francis decides to settle here. Later he goes to the barn with his son, Josh, to search for supplies. There they find eggs and an old chicken in a cage. While searching for the key, Josh is horrified to see a man's corpse hanging from the ceiling, with the keys attached to his belt. Francis tells Josh to retrieve them. The boy is asked, and suddenly, the body falls. Fortunately, remains motionless. That evening, the family has dinner for the first time in a long while, enjoying the supplies they found. At the table, Josh supports his mother, believing they should go north in the hope of finding a safe haven. But Francis is firm. He is convinced they will stay here to build their own safe corner in this new world. That night, Francis wakes from a nightmare. He realizes there's a basement in the house, which brings back old memories. In his childhood, he was often abused by his father, who frequently locked him down there. Many years have passed, but this trauma still haunts him. The next day, Iris persuades him for a long time, and finally, Francis agrees to leave the farm. The family sets out north again, hoping to reach a base and stay away from the infected. Their journey goes smoothly until they encounter a blocked bridge, the only path forward. Francis stops, thinking that the blockade might be there for a reason, but Iris, without hesitation, steps out of the van with a machete, determined to cut through the barbed wire. The sharp sound attracts the attention of nearby zombies. Seeing his wife in danger, Francis rushes to help her. He manages to shoot one of the zombies, but the gunshot draws in the others. Josh, sitting in the van, honks the horn to alert his parents and help them escape to danger. Meanwhile, zombies surround the van, drawn by the nose. Francis skillfully distracts them, killing one and running in another direction, luring the rest away. During this time, Iris, along with the children, hurries to lead them out of the danger zone. When Francis runs out of bullets, he notices a grenade on a fallen soldier. Grabbing it, he retreats, climbing over car rooftops, and then throws the grenade into the crowd of zombies, ending the pursuit. However, their van, damaged from the attack, now won't start. Deciding they have no other option, the family begins to walk back to the farm. In reality, the van wasn't broken at all. Francis lied to prevent Iris from continuing their journey north. Every day he works on repairing the farm. He connects a generator, enabling them to have light and air conditioning in the house. He is so happy, showing his sons the favorite records he and their mother used to love. The boys dance to the music, and for the first time in days, Iris smiles. Gradually, Iris begins to adjust to their new way of life, and her desire to go north fades. Francis hopes they can live here, far from danger. That evening, Francis plays their wedding video, and Iris joins him in the room. Lucas knocks on Josh's door. Afraid to sleep alone, Josh invites him in. After many days, they finally see their parents happy again. The boys hope their parents love each other and will resolve their conflicts. The next morning, Francis promises that everything will be fine. Life has given them a second chance. They join the children in the kitchen, who are happy to see them together. Francis says he'll bring something to eat, and heads to the chicken coop to get some eggs. There he finds a stray wolfhound, which has not only eaten the laying hen but also bites Francis on the hand. While Iris treats his wound, Josh outside suddenly shouts loudly. He heard on the radio news about a survivor camp established in a protected zone. This news once again makes Iris consider leaving the farm, but Francis still isn't ready to take that step. He states that he'd rather stay here, risking encounters with wild animals, then head north, where the risk of facing a horde of zombies is much higher. Soon after, Josh asks his father for batteries. Francis suspects that he wants to turn on the radio and possibly contact the nearby camp, which he cannot allow, so he refuses him. The following morning, Francis decides to take Josh to the sugar cane field to teach him firearm skills. However naturally timid, Josh doesn't even dare to pull the trigger, which displeases Francis. At that moment, Francis recalls how his abusive father used to yell at him. Josh, confused, fires the gun. Hearing the noise, Iris runs to them, but Francis continues yelling, scaring Josh, who begins to cry. Unfortunately, their shooting attracted attention. Lucas spotted a group of infected approaching. Drawn by the sound of gunfire, with each passing minute, the number of zombies increased, and in panic, the family rushed back to the house. Francis quickly locked the door and pushed an old dresser in front of it. They all hid in a corner, trying to make no sound. Yet more infected kept gathering outside the windows. It seemed as if the zombies were about to break in when suddenly a loud car horn sounded from outside. The new noise captured the attention of the infected, and, as if mesmerized, they turned and moved toward the car, which drove off, luring them away. At dawn, Francis dared to step outside. Following the tracks, he reached the riverbank and realized it had been his brother Diego who had saved them the night before. In conversation, Diego admitted that his wife and children had long fallen victim to the virus, so he had returned to the farm alone and unintentionally saved them. However, instead of gratitude, Francis pulled out a gun, showing his resentment toward his brother. In the past, Diego and Iris had been involved, and despite the horrors of the apocalypse around them, Francis had never been able to forget or forgive his brother for that affair. Seeing that his brother wasn't open to reconciliation, Diego decided to leave, mentioning as a farewell that a survivor's camp did indeed exist up north. If Francis decided to go, he could follow the route on a map Diego had left for him. With those words, Diego got into his car and drove off. Francis wanted to burn the map, but changed his mind, deciding it might come in handy. Returning to Iris, Francis lied, telling her that Diego had died. She said nothing in response, only quietly walked away, making it clear that deep down, she still harbored feelings for Diego. This moment was the final straw for Francis. He boarded up all the windows with wooden planks, thinking that would surely make them safe. However, soon after, Lucas went down to the basement and noticed a figure standing by the ventilation window. When it turned at the sound, it became clear that it was a zombie. Holding Lucas tightly and watching the zombie, Iris didn't notice Francis standing quietly by the door, clearly planning something. The next morning, Francis went after the old zombie, tracking it around the area. After killing it, he brought the infected's head home to show Iris the gruesome trophy, scaring the children in the process. He vowed to kill every last zombie to make their homes safer. At that moment, Josh noticed the map his father had and tried to steal it when Francis went to take a shower. But before he could grab it, Francis returned. That evening, Francis surprised his family by bringing in and decorating a Christmas tree in the living room. He wanted to enjoy the Christmas season at the dining table. During dinner, Iris found out about the map. Feeling betrayed by Francis and overwhelmed by anger, she declared that she would leave immediately. While Iris was fuming, Francis calmly took the map and, without hesitation, lit it with a lighter. He wasn't going to let Iris take the children and leave. Weeks pass, and Francis doesn't allow anyone to leave the house. All this time, they survive on sugarcane. While Francis goes out searching for food, Iris spends time with Lucas, telling him stories. That day, when Francis returns home, he chains the front door to keep the zombies out. Josh protests, but Francis, in anger, slaps him, treating him just as his own father once treated him. Suddenly, they hear someone knocking on the door. Francis doesn't want to open it, but Josh rushes to the door. Standing there is a man in military uniform, who introduces himself as a soldier from the survivors' camp in the north. He explains that he was searching for supplies with a group of comrades in the area, but unfortunately ran into a horde of zombies. If it hadn't been for a kind stranger who distracted the zombies, he would have died like the others. The soldier shares that, thanks to this unknown person, he made it to the farm safely, but the man who helped him was trapped by zombies. Hearing this, Iris immediately realizes it was Diego who had helped the soldier, meaning Francis had lied to her. Ignoring Francis's objections, she allows the soldier to stay with them. That evening, Josh secretly comes to Iris, confiding that he feels his father has become a completely different person, and he can no longer stand his control and pressure. Josh admits he wants to leave, find his uncle Diego, and he knows that Diego is actually his real father. Although Iris is very worried about her son, she agrees to let him go. Francis continues to have nightmares about his father. The next morning, the soldier is having breakfast with Lucas when Francis arrives and asks about Josh. Discovering that he's run away, Francis angrily grabs a hammer and strikes the soldier on the head. Then he hits Iris, who loses consciousness. He locks Lucas and Iris in the basement, knowing they have nothing to eat. Later, Francis appears at the doorway dressed in the soldier's uniform, holding a plate of cooked meat. Iris is terrified. Meat hasn't appeared on their table since the outbreak began, and she has no idea where Francis could have gotten it. When Iris and Lucas refuse to eat, Francis angrily threw the plate on the floor and left without saying a word. Later that night, screams woke him up. In a panic, he rushed to the basement and found Lucas curled up in a corner in pain. Taking advantage of the moment, Iris attacked her husband in an attempt to escape. She grabbed the keys and ran to the outer door, locking Francis in the basement. As she fled, memories of her father haunted her. Francis sat, trembling with fear, but just as they opened the doors to leave, they were horrified to see a zombie waiting for them outside. This zombie was Diego. Iris and Lucas tried to run back into the house, but the infected one was faster. Diego grabbed Iris by the leg, but Lucas managed to free her, though he was knocked to the ground himself. Hearing the commotion, Francis realized his family was in danger. Summoning all his strength, he broke down the door and rushed to help. Despite the zombie being neutralized, Lucas had been bitten during the struggle a few minutes earlier. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Iris grabbed a machete, gritted her teeth, and quickly severed her son's bitten arm to prevent infection. When they realized Lucas needed a blood transfusion, Francis wasted no time and ran to the van to drive his wife and son to a medical facility. On the way, he unexpectedly ran into Josh. Seeing his father covered in blood, Josh assumed he was infected and had turned into a zombie. Before Francis could say a word, Josh, in a panic, pulled the trigger. Only when he came closer did Josh realize his mistake. Dying, Francis told Josh to go back and get Iris and his brother, but now without his protection, will they be able to survive and find a safe place in this post-apocalyptic world? Thank you so much for watching until the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Please support the video with a like and a subscription so you don't miss new videos.